Thanks again for joining me. It's Azure Chris here, and today we're going to continue on our 10 steps to get started with Azure for Partners, and we're talking about number 3, custom domain. So custom domain is something simple. I think most people know about it, but I think it's really important, so I put it on my 10 step to get started. Probably going to be a short one. It really touches both set of SKUs though, so M365 or Azure Infrastructure. So by default, if you get one of those SKUs and you have to create a tenant in Azure Active Directory, by default, you're given a .onmicrosoft.com domain name, right? And that probably doesn't coincide with what you have traditionally or legacy on your environment, whether it's on-prem or in colo on your domain controller, which is probably contoso.com or your company name.com, right? In order to extend that domain name into Azure, you have to leverage custom domain. So that is in Azure Active Directory. You go to the blade, you configure those settings, go to your domain register, configure those settings there, and now you've extended it and you can use contoso.com in both locations. This allows you to move web services and use the same domain name or anything that's internet publicly facing, and allows, things like SSO and extending AD Connect into it. So we're going to jump into the demo. We're going to give you a little bit more theory, and hopefully you can use some information you use on your day-to-day. Let's just jump right into it. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking with me. It's Azure Chris, and we're talking about the 10 steps to get started with Azure for Partners. So we're talking about custom domain, and this is my blog site, azurechris.com. Please reach out, let me know what you think. And I have a brief write-up here with some screenshots, right, that kind of goes over what I'm talking about. But this link right here will take you directly to Microsoft's documentation, right? And this is what I want to kind of cover here today. So like I said earlier before, we talked about the .onmicrosoft.com domain name by default, right? And that probably won't line up with what your customer wants with the contoso.com or companyname.com, right? If they don't have something already, you can go out to this link and look for domain names, right, that are appropriate for them, and kind of work with them to make sure that they have what they want. Once you have that, or if they already have their domain name created, you can then go to Azure, right, and create their subscription and create the directory in Azure AD, right? And this link right here will take you through the steps to create that directory. So now that you're in Azure Active Directory and you have your directory created, you have to make sure that you have the global administrator, right? And that's probably the account that you use to create the subscription. And that'll give you enough of the permissions to be able to do this work in Azure Active Directory. You then want to take into consideration kind of if they're going to be cloud only, or they're going to be leveraging stuff that's already existing. Like I said, their Active Directory on-prem, and extending that with tools such as Azure AD Connect, right? And this kind of goes through that if they have stuff on-prem and you want to enable single sign-on, for things like M365 or WVD, right? Windows Virtual Desktop. This is the way to do it, right? So they talk about it and how to download the tool. So once you're in Azure AD, you can then drill down to custom domain names. You added add a custom domain here, and you can see the one that's already created, right, with the onmicrosoft.com, right? And you can't remove that. That's there forever. You can just add different ones and make sure you leverage them, right? And this takes you through the wizard, and it talks about the different .com, .nets, and all the different things there. Once you enter that information, the domain name that you want, it comes back and gives you your text record and your Amex record, and you would go back into your DNS, your domain register, populate this information and create a TXT record or Amex record, depending on what you're using. Set the time to live in your domain register, and then after a certain amount of time where your domain register takes this information, this new record that you created, and it populates it, you then go back to Azure Portal and verify or validate that your new record that you created is yours and that is created correctly, right? And you'll see that it's unverified here, and then once you click verify, if it works successfully and you've had enough time, you'll see the verification. So some list of some common verification issues that you can go through here, and some next steps. So let's just jump into the Azure Portal. So now that we're in the Azure Portal, we start at the dashboard. We can drill into Azure Active Directory. and what takes it to the overview page, right, where you're talking about the tenant ID and all that stuff that you have, some basic information. We can drill down here and see custom domain names. Okay, so we'll click on that. I already have a custom domain name created. This is the original one that was created when I created the subscription, right? And that's available. And this is the one that I added after. I already went through the verification process. But I could have different domain names, right? I could have something else that's totally different. And I could click add a domain name. And I have another domain name that I have here that's parked that I'm using just for test purposes. And I enter that information, and here we go. We have the text record and the Amex record that it gives me, right? And it creates those records. I can then copy that and go to my domain register, which I have my park domain here. I drill down and go down to a text record. I paste the value here, go back into the Azure portal, get this value for my destination and point address, right? And then I do that for the TXT address there. This is the minimum amount of time, the 4 hours. Like they said 60 minutes, but this is what my domain register has. I click save, it'll take some time. It'll, the time to live based on what they're pulling in and how they do their, domain schema kind of integration, right? And then I would then go back to my Azure portal. I'd have to wait a certain amount of time. I can then click verify. It will probably fail here, right? That's what I get. But after I said, after I wait a specific amount of time, this should work, right? You can then go back and you see it here, so it's unverified. Once I did verify, it would end up being like Azure Chris. I can then jump into this and show you what it's going to look like once it's verified, right? And they have the tool here, right, to extend with Azure AD Connect, so you can get that tool not only from the documentation but through the portal. I could click on it. I can make this domain name primary, so now it's going to use this domain name for all things going forward, leveraging PaaS services and things like that in Azure as well. I can then see what's in use with the domain name, right? So I've extended my on-prem Active Directory into Azure with Azure AD Connect already, and I've created group accounts and users, and I could see that now, based on this domain name, I have these groups that have been created and the user accounts and all the things that are associated with that. So if I wanted to make any changes, it would affect all those groups and users that I've already created. So that's really it. That's really high level what I wanted to show you for custom domain. Really quick, but I think, like I said, it's something important. Please click the like, subscribe if you find this stuff of value. Let me know, leave some feedback on my YouTube channel or in my blog post, whatever. And hopefully you come back and join me for step number 4, which is going to be migrating into Azure. Once again, like I said, I hope you find this stuff useful, and hope to talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks.